monopoly on.
That's exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
And
it's
some
really
more examples
scary.
just from a couple of days ago and from a couple of weeks ago. In the United States, they just passed. They allowed Monsanto to proceed with genetically modified alfalfa. And this is one of the most outrageous things. There was no environmental, assessment whatsoever. They just basically passed it. And alfalfa is extremely important because people use that as a forage crop. It means that genetically modified stuff is going to get into all dairy food pretty much. Alfalfa is one of those cross-pollinated crops that, just like happened with canola in the near future, pretty soon we're not going to have any GE-free alfalfa. And that's really, really radical because it just wipes out, 10,000 years of having something that, it perverts and corrupts our entire seed crop for alfalfa and gets into everything else. So it's a battle that's going on. Just 1 second. And one of the ways that we could really protect ourselves in terms of future possibilities of maintaining these open pollinated savable seeds is having as many people as possible growing them. If you're growing them in places where it's not big scale commercial monoculture, even in cities and towns and backyards, then maybe we could keep things like genetically modified alfalfa out of certain areas and maintain it or whatever. That's a really key thing there, because if we take seed saving out of the realm of money, they really don't have the same kind of power over us. And then it's just something that's part of the commons, freely traded, and it's really, really, all these communities that are doing all these initiatives around seed saving, you won't read about that in the media. It's just not hot news. And amazing amount has already happened. And the more people that are doing it, the more complicated it becomes for their infrastructure to keep tabs on it.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of maintaining databases of who's growing what and what the seeds are all about, I think that's the way we have to go. We have to not do that in the fear-based mode, but just do it because it's really important to link communities. See, because if you take our community and you start joining with other communities, there's a very real possibility that something unique and new might happen in this country, and that is people saving seeds right across the country, but in touch with each other, everybody maintaining their own records and knowing who's growing what. But then, with the beauty and simplicity of computers, while they're still working, we can know what Owen is growing, and he can turn us on to some exciting things that he's found out about on the East Coast that we don't know about, and vice versa. And we can just really get into a kind of sharing of seeds it certainly hasn't been uncommon in the history of agriculture on the planet, but it's nothing that's ever happened in Canada in this way, where you have a grassroots thing where you have seed banks and people maintain them and people are intimate with their seeds, and you go from one place to another and you trade and exchange information, and the possibilities are they're endless, and they're so exciting because it's already, you can almost see it happening. And in my world, just lately, all of a sudden I've hooked up with people from Seeds of Diversity Canada, which is another major seed saving network, and the Unitarian Service Committee of Canada, which has been mostly working to encourage people to save seeds in the rest of the world, but now they're starting to see that Canada is a third world country like all the others that they've been supporting. And the organizations and foundations that already exist are starting to really link together and support each other. And so what could happen is a bottom-up kind of thing where people learning about food and culture can turn on their farmers who are close by to growing the kinds of things that they've discovered to be really good. And we could start changing the agricultural slant of everything from inside out by people just discovering good food and turning everybody else on instead of those corporate people just deciding what they're going to feed you and it basically being not about food and nutrition and health, but about profit and control. And so we could have something totally amazing, and we probably will, because this is happening. Look, this is part of it. Yeah, I tend to agree with you in terms of Brendan's question from before that I think it's not, like we should just be open and just do it, and do it in the most positive, joyful way,
Yes.
and not really say that we're just fighting that, but we're just doing this because it's the right thing to do. And
you know, often we come to these things and there's this really fabulous core group of people that's ever expanding, that's very interested in what you're talking about. But it seems to me there has to be some mechanism for getting the message to the person in Vancouver who's working 9 to 5, goes to Safeway every week, doesn't have a clue what's going on, doesn't know BLC 474, doesn't understand. I think somehow the more we can get the message out and have people understand what the future of their food is, the more support and the more lobbying against those MPs who are supporting this kind of bill will be. I don't know how that happens. I feel really, really helpless and powerless sometimes when I see what's going on. And yes, we can work in our core groups to do the things that are going to be helpful in the future, but how to educate the masses.
We still have taxpayers who say food, and we have lobbied, we have tried to get labeling. 2 bills have gone down already in the history of lobbying for GE. And it's very hard to sustain that level of activism. It takes a huge amount of energy, takes a huge amount of commitment, and I think most of us who did this for so many years, and we did as much public education as we could. We tried to get consumers on board, and I think most of us have ended up thinking, I'm just going to put my energy into what Dan's talking about, local development of community, local saving of seeds, because we almost feel, this last bill to me, having followed this for 15 years, this bill 474 was a kind of our last hope. And it sounded like a weak bill in that all it was asking for, and it was put forward by Alex Atamenko, was to have an economic, not environmental, not health, anything else, economic assessment of new GE crops being introduced to see how it would affect farmers. The problem being is that 2% of our Canadians are not farmers.
yeah,
And they don't have much lobbying power. Most of our universities are highly supported by biotech companies. So they have a lot of lobbying power because they have a lot of people who have the ears of government because they're constantly getting grants and things as well. So it's very hard to keep the sustained activism. I agree that activism is necessary, but in some ways with the loss of Bill 474, I think we've really got to direct our energies into doing what we can locally to preserve seeds and to build up our own seed stock.